Hello. Today we're going to be talking about integrating third-party products such as DXLab Commander and WSJT-X with Win4IcomSuite. Win4IcomSuite has 6 built-in virtual radios that can connect to just about any third-party product, and all of them can run simultaneously with only one USB connection to the radio or one network connection to the radio. The USB and network connection shown here has already been described in my other video, Win4IcomSuite installation and networking. And today we're going to do a full demonstration of how to set up DXLab and then how to set up WSJT-X. This diagram shows the overall concept. The functionality starts with the USB or network connection, which is a dedicated connection between the radio and Win4IcomSuite. One should never install any other port sharing utilities here. You only use the direct connection. From there, we use a utility called COM0COM, which creates the equivalent of a cable, allowing the connection of two software products together that use comports for communications. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to show how to configure COM0COM, one pair for DXLab and COM0COM, another pair for WSJT-X. So the very first step is to download and install COM0COM. So I'll begin with putting in COM0COM into the Google search engine. And you'll see that we end up with a couple of entries. The one that you're going to want to take is the one that exists on sourceforge.net. Okay, this one is free. There are others from companies such as Altima, and I do not want to pick that one. It costs money and doesn't offer anything different. And you'll see that there's two versions here. One is version 3 and one is version 2.2. Both of them will work fine, but you might as well take the latest one, so I'll pick up COM0COM here. So when I click on that, it'll bring me to SourceForge. And you'll see we have a list of the various versions. I'll pick version 3. And that will open up a few files. The one of interest is called COM0COM version 3, and it has the word signed in it. You're going to want to use the signed version, otherwise you have to turn off driver signing in Windows, so take this version. So I'm going to pick that. That will start a download. It just takes a couple of seconds, and there we go. I'm now going to open that file, and Windows will then give me a compressed folder, and I have the ability now to extract it, so I'll say extract all. That will extract the files into a folder, and it'll show them when it's complete. So I'll say extract. So there it is. So if I take a look at that, I have two files in there. One is for 64-bit Windows and one is for 32-bit Windows. Since I have the 64-bit Windows installation, I'm going to take the first one. Now what you're going to want to do is you want to run this as an administrator. Okay, because it's installing a device driver and you need to have it done as administrator. Okay, so there we go. I'm going to click on next and agree to the license, and next, and then it's going to do the install. Goes very, very quickly. That's it. So we are now finished. Okay, the next step is to create the comport pairs, which act as cables between two software applications. So for that, I'm going to come down into the Windows Start menu, and I'm going to look for COM0COM. There it is. And there's two programs here. One is the command line, and one is the regular setup. To choose the regular one. So if I click on that, I will then get the following setup for COM0COM. Now it looks complicated, but it's not. It's really simple. If it's not working for you, then you made it more complicated than you should have, because it's very, very simple. When it starts up, the very first thing you're going to see is it's created one virtual pair. and it has two COM ports in there which have cryptic names. Now it does that because it doesn't know exactly what COM ports exist on your system and which ones you want to use. So what you want to do now is you want to change the name of these COM ports to something that does not exist on your computer. Now I happen to know that COM19 and COM20 do not exist. Okay? If I had put in something that does exist, let's say COM14, it'll be written in red saying, no, you can't do that. That COM port exists. Okay, so I'm going to put this back to COM20. So there's my first pair. I'm going to click on apply, and you'll see there's our first pair. Remember, this acts as a cable. One end has COM19 on it. You connect it to one software product. The other end has COM20, and you connect it to another software product. Okay, so I am going to use this pair for DXLab Commander, as I'll show in a few minutes. And for now, I'm going to create another pair, which I'm going to use for WSJT-X. So we're going to start off by clicking on Add Pair, and again, I'll get two cryptic COM ports. So I'm going to enter COM21 and COM22. And I'm going to click on Apply, and there we go, our second pair. Now one thing to just keep in mind at this point, I'm using fairly high COM port numbers, and all of my software is fairly new. It's been written or updated within the last few years, so it will accept COM ports higher than about COM port 10. Some of the older packages will not allow you to enter anything higher than COM 10. So that's it. I've created the two pairs, and we're now going to go on into configuring Win4IcomSuite, and then DXLab, and then WSJT-X. Alright, now we're going to look at configuring DXLab Commander. As luck would have it, before when I mentioned that some software packages do not work with higher value COM ports, when I was testing this video, I noticed that OmniRig is one of them. OmniRig will not go higher than COM20. So originally I talked about using this virtual COM port pair of 19 and 20 for DXLab, and then 21 and 22 for OmniRig, but I realized I have to reverse that because OmniRig won't see anything higher than COM20. So we're going to look at configuring DXLab with COM21 and COM22. Okay, so what I'm going to want to do at this point is I'm going to want to open up Win4IcomSuite, and then I'm going to go into Tools, Settings, and I'm going to pick third-party software hardware. Now, what you see here are 6 virtual radios. They are labeled as auxiliary cat port 1 all the way up to auxiliary cat port 6. The idea is if we want to use, let's say, the first one with DXLab Commander, we would pick a COM port pair, put the first COM port in here, or the second, it doesn't matter. It's a cable. Put the COM port in here, and then in DXLab, connect to the corresponding COM port and put it in that application. So let's start with putting in COM21. We'll come up here and we'll pick COM21, and I'm going to say connect, and that's basically all you have to do on the Win4Icom side. Notice that if you want, you can also set this up so that you can auto launch applications. So once everything is configured, if I would like to auto launch DXLab, I would just put a link to the executable inside here, and then every time you start Win4Icom, it will start DXLab. So okay, so let's open up DXLab. So DXLab is coming up, and notice it's already pre-configured, but in general it won't be, or you'll get an error because it won't be able to connect to the COM port. But then you're going to want to go into config, You're going to want to make sure that you pick the right radio. The radios have to correspond, so this is the IC7610. We want to make sure that the IC7610 is there. Then we're going to want to click in ports, and we're going to want to put the second port from that pair in there. So I would put COM22. So if you take a look under the settings here, there we go. We have COM21 right there, and then the cable goes from Win4Icom over to Commander into comport 22. And that's all you have to do. One thing you should notice is that these connections do not use any kind of handshaking. So in general, you would leave DTR off and RTS off. Okay, that's basically it. We now have Win4IcomSuite connected to DXLab Commander. You'll notice that anything I do here will be reflected in DX Commander, changing bands, changing modes, whatever. It's very fast. It's not quite as fast as being on the radio, but it's pretty close. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this frequency, and that's it. As I mentioned before, you don't need to keep zero COM operational. It can be kept closed. Now, one thing to notice is that once you start up, you should always start up Win4Icom first, and then start up Commander. When you shut things down, it should always be done in the reverse order. So always close Commander first, then close Win4IcomSuite. That applies to any of the products that are out there. Yes, we're going to want to go and Google again, and we're going to want to search for OmniRig. And you'll find it on DX Atlas. We'll come here, it gives a description of what it is. We're going to come down here to the downloads page. You're not really interested in any of these. They're not necessary for what we want to do. So we're coming into the downloads, and the OmniRig download is further down the page. We're going to come down here, and there it is. Now notice there's two files. One is OmniRig itself, and the other is the rig definition files. There's going to be a different file for every rig. So we're going to first want to download OmniRig and do the install. So if I click on that, Windows will put it up. I'll say extract all, and I'll say extract, and then I'll want to click on the setup, and there we go. Very, very simple, very fast, simple. The other one we're going to want to download are the INI files. So we're going to click on that, then we're going to open it, and we're going to say extract all, and it's going to ask me for a destination. Now these files have to be put in a place that OmniRig will recognize it. So I'm going to click on browse, and I'm going to go down to the C drive. Whoops, right? Go down to the C drive, and in the program files x86, we'll find a folder called Efreet. That's the name of the company that makes OmniRig and CW Skimmer. So I'm going to then click on OmniRig, and then you'll see there's a folder called Rigs. So I'm going to select that, and that's going to be the folder where Windows is going to extract all the rig definition files. So I'm going to select that. Okay, and I'm going to say extract. Now I've already done this a few times, so I'm just going to say replace the files. Do this. Okay, off it goes, and there you go. The files are now in there. So that's basically it. We now have OmniRig installed. Next, I'm going to want to go down to the Windows search bar and type OmniRig, and that will start up the program. There it is. It's a very simple program. It just provides an interface between two other software programs, itself and another program. So the way this works is that there's two rig definitions, rig 1 and rig 2. Turns out that WSJT-X seems to have a bug that it will not work with rig 2, but it does work with rig 1. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to come in here, and you're going to want to pick the rig. So there's a 7610, and since we're using WSJT-X, we're going to want to use the one that's specially coded for data modes on the 7610. If you had instead a 7300, you would do the same thing with the 73 or the 7851. There we go. That's it. So we're going to pick that. Next thing is, now we're going to want to use the ports. So I tend to use the lower one sometimes for in Win4Icom. So that's not the one I'm going to choose. I'm going to choose COM20. COM20. Like that. And that's it. I leave everything else pretty well at the defaults, but you can take a look at this in case yours happens to be a little bit different. Keep the baud rate at 3800. Everything else as follows. And I'll just say OK. Now, what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to open up Win4IcomSuite. Call up Win4IcomSuite. And I'm now going to connect to that second pair. Settings. Third party. We've already connected here, COM21 and COM22 to DXLab. So now over here, I'm going to take COM19, say connect, and that's all I have to do there. And once again, if I want to launch WSJT-X automatically, I would put it in there. So I'm going to click on save. Okay. All right, so now let's open up WSJT-X, which is right there. Okay. That opens up for me like that. Now, you'll notice that it is already synchronized. Well, I've already pre-configured this. So if I come up to File, Settings, whoops, and I come into Radio, notice how I've already picked OmniRig Rig 1. You should not pick any of the individual radios. Okay, they all use hamlib, and there's some significant issues there. So do not use that. Use OmniRig Rig 1. Okay, once you've selected that, there's very little else you have to do. For example, you should pick CAT because you want to use a software command to activate push to talk, and you're going to want to select the data packet mode, and the best thing to use is to fake it for the split operation. So I'm going to click on OK, and there we go. WSJT-X is now communicating. However, with WSJT-X, there's one more step that has to be done. That is the sound configuration. Now, WSJT-X requires a sound input and a sound output. Depending on how you're using Win4IcomSuite, this is going to be different depending on whether you are connected directly to the radio or over the network. So we're going to start with the simple situation where we're connected directly to the radio. When you install the device drivers for the Icom radios, it also installs a USB audio codec. And these codecs have basically two components. One is the output and one is the input. So when you open up WSJT-X and you go into the settings, if you select audio, you'll see that you have an input and you have an output. As it turns out, the Icom radios create a USB audio codec, one of which is called microphone and one of which is called speakers. Now I happen to have two Icom radios here, so there's more than one, but I happen to know that the one that's just labeled USB audio codec corresponds to the Icom 7610. If I was to open this up, you can see that there's also a microphone 2-USB audio codec. That is for my 7300. But for the demonstration here, I'm going to be taking the 7600 input, which is the USB audio codec. So when you're connected directly, this is all you have to do. Just select that and select that. Nothing more. And WSJT-X will now operate correctly. Here is a client installation of Win4IcomSuite on the network. So this is on my laptop, and what we have here is Win4IcomSuite connected across the network to my server in the basement. We have the main control program connected, and here we have the sound client. If I click on connect, you'll be able to hear WSJT signals coming through. If I turn up the volume, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to disconnect temporarily. Now, this works fine if you want to just go out through the speakers and the microphone, because these devices are basically an input-output device from Windows. However, if you want to redirect these devices instead to a program, you have to do it differently. So as shown in my network setup video, here's a diagram of how the sound is routed when you do it locally and then when you do it over a network. So here we have the transceiver. The output of the transceiver goes through the microphone, the USB codec called the microphone, and the input is going through the codec called speakers. So the output of the radio comes through here, goes through there, comes across here, now, and then goes into the speakers on the laptop, and vice versa with the microphone. So this is the basic network installation and the flow of the sound. Now when you want to put in if you want to put in a product like WSJT-X or FLDigi for that matter, or any program that uses a sound card, FT8, whatever, okay, what you're going to want to do is install something called a virtual audio cable. This reroutes the sound from basically the microphone here to the input of the radio and vice versa. So if we could take a look at this picture here, we've got the transceiver. The sound is coming out through the microphone codec, and now it's coming into the remote system, but instead of going into the speakers and coming out the speakers, it's going to this device which will redirect the sound. So it's called the virtual audio cable, and it's coming into the input, and the output of that then goes into the input of WSJT-X right here. Okay, it's a little confusing the first time you see it, but I will actually show it in operation now. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to download this virtual audio cable. It's a free application, and if I just search for virtual audio cable, this is the first hit. Take that. We can then just click on download and do the installation. This will make two devices in the Windows Device Manager, a cable input and a cable output. So when you open up WSJT-X, which I'm going to do right now, okay, first of all, you'll notice that it's synchronizing like it's supposed to, even though it's over the network. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to, instead of going through the microphone and the speakers, we're going to want to use the virtual audio cable. So we're going to take the cable output for here. You really don't have any other choice. It's only going to give you the cable. Then we're going to come here and we're going to take the input. So there we have it, these two devices. Then we come into WSJT-X and we go into the settings under audio, and there we select the corresponding devices in there. It had already done it, of course, but there we go, and that's it. So now we say OK and we click on connect. The sound is being redirected appropriately. Instead of to the speaker and the microphone, it's going to the input and output of WSJT-X, and we should start seeing decoding happening any second. Here we go. There you have it. We have a complete remote network installation. Nothing needs to be changed other than the audio for DXLab Commander. You don't have to change anything because it's not using any audio, so it should just connect up without a problem. So there we have it. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is a very powerful way to operate all of your applications remotely with one network connection or one direct connection to the radio. You can run up to 6 applications simultaneously, including HRD logbook if you so wish. Thank you very much for watching this video. 73s.